Welcome back to Community Talk Radio. This is Project Independence and You, Talk of the Town on LIU Public Radio. I lost my co-host for a minute because, as we said in the beginning of our segment, he's the most popular man in the world, Dan. I mean, look at this guy. The amount of I feel like this has become a bit on the show now. Is that
those commercials, the most important man in the world? That's not him. We've got him right here.
That is really, you are correct. I think we have our own, our local hero here.
Yeah. I mean, look, Otto comes totally prepared for almost, the day we can throw him off, I think will be the best.
I know. I mean, look, we were talking about him, and Dan, we're going to have to go, Mom, because the most popular man has returned.
The most popular man in the world.
In the world has returned. So we've officially coined you, Otto. But one of our other, we are still here. One of our favorite things about Otto also is that you can't see, unless you're watching us on YouTube, you might be able to see. He's got this lovely list in front of him that he prepares for this segment of just, topics. We see it. They say good. We see your beautiful document. So, Otto, my favorite thing about this segment is that, you come up with a topic and then we just, we brainstorm and chat it up. So let me know.
I used ChatGPT.
Okay.
And it said, what is one of the more difficult things for people who are retired and or seniors?
Okay.
All right. And it came down to be relationships and social life.
Mm-hmm. And I think, speaking of relationships, we're approaching Valentine's Day. So you found like a seasonal topic, and how I feel about a seasonal topic. So
right. But there are a lot of people that don't have anybody for Valentine's Day. So it could be a bad holiday.
It is. But you know what? What I like about Valentine's Day, I'll give just a quick little debrief about that.
What we got.
Well, yes, that's right. They are blessed with treats by me. So, we, of course, I love a holiday. And Valentine's Day to me is about love for everyone, right? That is in your life that you want to. So I don't just, I've never just celebrated it, which might be a shocker to you guys. But from a very young age, I was very big. Everyone gets a Valentine in school. I had the cutest things ever I would give out that I would work on.
Did you have a Valentine's Day?
Oh yeah, I would always have like little, but I was,
Mate.
Yes, but there, of course, there was, and you're too embarrassed at that age to even say such a thing. But like I think about Valentine's Day, and it's more just a just a reminder of the people that you love in your life. Obviously I have a lovely husband, that is very romantic all the time. But like Valentine's Day, I'm still embracing it with my mom. I'm seeing my family this weekend. So I'm going to give, I've lived Valentine's for my brother, his wife, his dog. And then me and a bunch of our girlfriends, on the 15th, we're going out for Galentine's Day lunch, just because it's fun to be with each other. So it's all about embracing love, whatever that looks like to you, whoever that is, and so that's my little sidebar on Valentine's.
But many people are lonely.
Yeah. That's why you got to get involved in PI, right?
Socially isolated. Mm-hmm. And it becomes more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And me, I happen to be lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I have still some friends, although I have to admit that I too, at my age, go through losing a lot of close people. People who I have a cousin who I lost not long ago. He and I, for example, I guess 2 years ago, we did 18,000 steps together in New York. All right. We met at Penn Station. We walk up around Central Park, and then we go all the way to the top and then all the way down. Grab a burger in between.
Sounds delicious.
And, but he's not here anymore. So I miss doing that with him.
Of course.
All right.
I could imagine.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
That was our record. We never went anywhere near that.
I mean, that's a pretty solid record.
That was a full day.
Yeah, that's an intense record.
That was a full day. But, I can relate to a lot of people have really very little in terms of who they can talk to, work with, whatever. And I'm not sure if there's any super easy answers to that.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have kind of lived their life in that path, and that's okay. People, you can be happy with that. No problem. So I guess the question is like, if you choose to want to kind of not be in that boat, what can you do?
Yeah.
You know, like I went in reading for this thing here. When people first retired, like Dan, um, you everybody, when you work, you have an identity that comes with your work.
Mhm.
All right.
And
So
so much time. I mean, the amount of time you spend at work, we laugh. We said you spend more time with your work people than you do with your own
no
family,
question
So
about it.
it's like that in itself is, a
Right.
mind-blowing thing.
And the social part of work is often overlooked.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the issues that came up during COVID.
Yeah.
Like I knew people 25, 26, 28 years old working home every day.
hmm
And I'm saying to myself, man, when I worked at 28, I was working in Manhattan. I had 40, 50 loony bins around me, you know, and we would get together socially, all right, in
Yeah.
Manhattan.
Yeah.
Go to a museum,
Mhm.
or, maybe
Of
a
course. Yeah.
pub
Oh,
occasionally.
I was waiting for that. I like that he was just acting like he was going to museums. I really like that.
But even younger people were going through
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
that, and frankly, some of them haven't really rebounded
hmm
because the work world has changed
Yeah, right. Right, because
dramatically.
you realized a lot of work could technically be done remotely, right? So then that gets rid of overhead. You don't have to be in the office. I mean, there's so many things that I think it showed, but as you're saying, there's another whole aspect to, um, and plus, listen, I love remote work is great. On occasion, having it when the weather is bad, having that as an option, I always think is nice, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But I do think as a person who, during COVID had to be remote, you know, being in person with people, you're able to really like talk things out, right? There's something that comes up, especially in our world. You'll get a phone call. I could yell, Paula, what's that? I mean, we're constantly, in communication that you kind of lose that when you're not, in that space.
Yeah, I mean, during COVID, I was in this building by myself
Yeah.
for long periods of time. And it's one of the reasons I retired.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah, like
it was soul crushing.
mhm.
Because for me, as with you explained earlier with your work experience, I have to be around people. I don't like remote work.
Mhm.
I don't. Getting into remote to fix things or
Right,
to
right. Like
straighten
to have
something up or
like
send an
the
email,
ability,
whatever.
right?
The ability to do is great,
Mhm.
but I go to work to
Yeah.
interact with people.
hmm
Yeah, I mean,
That's
I
why I
could
always went to
handle
work.
both. Like I had the type of job in the last number of years where I would work out of the house a couple of days.
Yeah, that's what I said. Like the hybrid thing
Yeah.
sounds great.
Hybrid is good.
Yeah, like that.
But
That's how I
I
personally.
think about people who are young.
Yeah.
It's bad for older people
Mhm.
too, but I think often overlooked is the fact that it's not good for younger people.
Yeah.
Like I had a grandson. He's working out of the house. He's 28 years old. Uh, he has nobody home
Yeah.
because they had COVID. He
Right.
didn't even have anybody in the house.
Yeah.
So
But I think it's has a lot to do with what we've talked about in the past about adaptation. I think the younger generation is certainly more used to that
That's solo.
style.
that style of,
Yeah.
of working because they do so much by
Mhm.
electronics,
Yeah.
text messaging, voice messaging. Uh, I I agree with you. Like I don't like when we had to teach remotely. Terrible.
yeah,
I like to be in the
yeah.
classroom. I like to walk around. I like to
Mhm.
see my students. So that's very frustrating. So but from a point of view of these young kids, and all of the students in my class this semester are all Z's. They've
Mhm.
all been born in this century, and they have a very different view on all this. They have no problem with working remotely. They don't have a problem with not having that one-on-one, you know. And I understand what you're saying, but I think they'll be okay. I don't worry about them, but I think we're making too much out of it.
Well, I'm just saying
In some
it's
ways,
different.
I'm not saying what you're saying. I
I mean,
agree with what you're saying, but
in my planet, you worked at a place and there was a possibility you might go on a date with somebody
Right.
there.
Right.
all
Yeah, you're meeting
You had a
people
social
different, right?
life.
Mhm.
You had more social outlets where
Yeah.
you would meet people.
Mhm.
And I understand now, it's less than it used to be.
Absolutely.
All right. And it's via the internet,
Yeah.
perhaps,
Mhm.
that you hook up. And you know, just the way it is.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I ask my students, I tell them when I met my wife in high school,
Hmm.
but my brother met his wife at a party. My other brother, yeah,
Hmm.
we were at social gatherings where people were. That's where we found
Right.
our significant other or our partner. How do you find yours?
Yeah.
And they say, well, you know, it's school,
Hmm.
which is work, which is also because
Mm.
a lot of them work. But for the most part, they're very accepting and very don't have any problem with finding somebody through the internet. And that's not just that generation. I have a good friend who's
Oh yeah.
older than I am
Oh yeah.
who's married today because he found a woman
I can't. So many people.
on the
Yeah,
internet.
I know older
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
who've hooked up.
Yeah. So
with-
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, I think you have a good point, Dan, because like I think too, and it's like the tales all the time is like, when you did grow up in a certain way, like you can it's hard for you, because now, like, but like you're saying, this is how they grew up, right? So they're so young that, when COVID was going on, I mean, they were still pretty young, like, so you're kind of like entering the workforce, like this is the norm, right?
Sure.
So like you're not necessarily missing this kind of space.
I think of these
Yeah.
kids who were born in this again, since 2000, they've all experienced
Yeah.
COVID. So I mean, I think there's probably going to be a really terrific study done 20 years from now
Mhm.
to see
Right.
the impact and the effects.
Right,
Just
right,
as,
right, exactly. Like who knows?
just as right now we're seeing studies done on the impact and effect of 9/11
Mhm.
on the kids who
Right.
grew up during that time. So yeah, it's gonna be really interesting.
Mhm.
But the one area, and I think both of you would agree with me here, is the one that I do say I don't like, and I ask every semester, and I've come to be okay with it, is how many of you, and this is a show of
Mhm.
hands, have either been jilted, broken up, or broke up with somebody via text
Oh.
message?
Oh, no, not that one.
No, via text message.
Hang on, Otto raise his hand.
No, we've all done it. We've all
No
broken.
Yes.
phone call, nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you got no
Oh, you
phone
got-
call.
you
Oh,
got
just got
ghosted?
ghosted. He
I
just
was-
got
Who
ghosted.
ghosted Otto Los? I'm gonna find that person.
That's
I
happened.
was in the Navy.
Oh,
And
well,
on an aircraft
she thought
carrier.
you were gone.
Yeah.
No, she
You know, it's
wasn't
circumstance.
gone. I just
No,
never
but-
Oh, he
heard
said-
from her.
But here's the thing. That's the one part of a relationship. So you have, unless you've had your entire relationship online,
Mhm.
if you've interacted, with each other, to break up by text
Yeah.
message to me is,
I
but
know.
they've accepted it. and
It's like
they
the
don't have a
norm, right?
problem with it.
Yeah,
And you know
right.
what? If they don't have a problem
Right.
with it, I don't
Yeah.
have a problem.
Well, frankly, if somebody breaks up with you by text message, you were fortunate that they broke up with you in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
That's
you,
my view,
since you've
all
been
right?
ghosted.
I
yeah.
learned that after my breakup, right?
I don't know, just be glad you
The
got
person-
some
that
connection,
person wound up being
communication.
married 3 times, and I look back and I realize I was as stupid as you could be, and it
Well,
would
you
have
know
never
what?
You
lasted.
were young. You were
Well, you know what? Otto jokes on her.
18 years old, as
Yeah.
dumb as you could be.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things to me, I think, is more so needed now than was back in those times, because you could sit in a room working or be wherever, and there's activity, whether you like it or not.
Mm.
You have to be more proactive and reach out more
Mhm.
today.
Yeah, I think
Don't
so.
expect people to call you or text you
Right.
or, you have to be, if you want to have any social contact,
Mhm.
you have to reach out.
It's true.
And if
Mhm.
you don't reach out, it ain't
Right.
going to happen.
I
Very
agree.
true.
I hear people say, oh, my grandchild, or this and that, they never call, well, then you call.
Mhm.
Well, you mentioned earlier offline, or maybe on the air, that your job oftentimes becomes your identity. And I
Right.
told you that this is where I love to be. This is who I am. My job is who I am. And I take pride in that. But I talk to these kids and I said, my millennial friends,
Mhm.
my children are millennials. What I like about the millennials is they're not going to do that.
Mhm.
They're not going to do that. They have the ability, which I find I'm very happy about that. If they're not happy in a job or their boss is treating them poorly, they leave.
Mhm.
Like our generation was told never to do that. You stay where you are, and there's
Yeah.
no gold watch. I get that. But,
Yeah.
but I think there are certain vocations that are callings I think teaching, I think social work,
Mhm.
I think nursing, I think
Yeah.
the medicine.
Right.
I think these are callings.
Mhm.
And when you have a calling, that does become your
Mhm.
identity.
Yeah.
But if you're just going to be, no offense, a radiologic tech who goes,
Mhm.
takes pictures all day and comes home,
Yeah.
that's a job.
Right.
They like it. It's probably what they like to do. But I don't think at
Right.
some
The
age they said,
connectivity is not necessary. Right.
yeah, it's not necessary. In those vocations, there's some kind of connectivity with other human beings that can't be electronic. It has to be personal. Although we're seeing a lot with this therapy thing, the online therapy. I think it's great because you see the person,
Yeah.
but
I know.
don't you
I
really want to be in
know.
the same
I
room
know.
when you're talking to a therapist?
That's why I think it's like hard, right? Because I feel, you can just gain so much more, even when in own personal relationships, not even in anything else, to really sit with your friend as opposed to, seeing them through a screen. It's just different,
Well,
and I think it's tough. It's like a tough
I spent
world to
60
navigate.
some odd years in the sales world, all right, business to business. And I was always big on within the reality of is this really worth doing, all right, for both parties. But I would fly to Chicago or whatever to have a sit down with somebody. I was talking about a fair amount of money. And to me, the personal relationship part of it again, trust, the ability to personally communicate is very important, and to visually see what this person is doing and going through, and and today the sales world is very different. A lot of communicating isn't done that way.
All right.
It's done via text, maybe a video call once in a while, which lasts a half an hour, and that's it. Whereas I would see where they worked and meet the people around them.
Yeah.
And that's the major difference. See, your company would fly you to Chicago.
Yeah.
Today,
you
they
ain't-
don't want to pay for
right.
flying you
But
to
that
Chicago.
exactly.
Expensive.
So they'll use
No question.
a video
Now,
video
there's pluses
technology.
to that too.
Yeah, of course.
Once
That's
you
what I'm saying.
do
It's tough.
establish the eyeball to eyeball relationship, if you will, all right, then there are pluses to handling certain things for both parties.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, on a video call or,
Well, there are economies to it, and that's what
sure,
you want
and
to
a
do.
time economy.
Yeah.
Yes.
But, in certain sales worlds, which I was always in, you build relationships over a long period of time.
No, and I think, Otto, you started this conversation, about relationships, and I was just thinking too, like, even like, obviously as I get older myself, which shocking, I know.
You get older.
It's shocking.
I thought you were going in the other direction.
I was waiting for that.
Shock
You guys,
for me.
I mean, I called you a millennial. I'm sorry. You can be a Z
That's
if you
just
want.
ageless, But it's something, and of course, when you're young, you hear, people say like, oh, as you get older, you're not gonna have as many friends, like it change, and like, right, you don't know that until you get to those parts of life. And of course, I've been very fortunate to have been with my husband since I was 17 years old. So, we've grown through all these things together, and we've had, super giant friend groups, and and you see it dwindle over there, right? Everyone becomes and I'm very aware of that, right? Like everyone's got their own life, but as you were saying, Otto, I am the person, and because it's important to me that we'll be the one to reach out, right? So if I want to maintain a friendship, I'm fully aware that it could probably fizzle out if I'm not, the person checking in,
Well,
so,
and
but
sometimes you may let it fizzle out because you say, I'm tired
yes,
with that.
absolutely.
Being the
And
one who always reaches
and I've
out.
been there with other people
The
before.
train ride.
Right, exactly.
They want to get
Well,
off the
yeah.
train. let 'em
But
get
another
off the
thing
train.
I found
Yeah.
in my experience is that I had friends in college that I was very close to, who once we graduated, we went off, had our families,
right.
we moved away from each other. But the great part about that is, and I don't know if it's a phenomenon or whatever you want to call it, 20 years went by, we reconnect, and it's like nothing. Like
But
we
that-
talk
yeah.
about what we did. We raised families.
Yeah, right.
But it's like we still
Yeah,
look at
but
each
that's
other
special.
and see each other at 20 years old again,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which we're not.
But that's,
Yeah.
see, that's
I
the part about getting older is the people who you could relate to when you were in college. All of a sudden, those people aren't here anymore. So the people who you can
Yeah.
relate to, like me, if I was big baseball, who I could relate to
Yeah.
when we played baseball, they're not here anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So, okay, so everybody looks at me like, nah, he could never have played baseball. You know,
Not,
you know what I'm saying? Like, you have
I
that
know.
common, and that's one of the issues when you do get older,
Right.
Yeah, which is a hard thing to contend with.
which is hard.
Yeah.
It requires, you have to work at it. All right. If anybody's listening,
Right.
you have to work at that. You can't get it back because it don't work.
Yeah.
All right.
No, and it's, and I think, Otto, we've had this conversation a lot of times, the two of us, because I think it is a hard thing to, get past, right? And to accept, because it's a loss, right? Like, so like you're mourning that loss of, who you were when you were young. It's a running joke I always have. My mom always says, because she's been at her job for a bazillion years. And she said, she was, I think it's time to retire because there's no one that remembers when I was young and hot anymore, there. she's like, like there used to be the person like, oh, Barbara, I remember you. And she's like, I think it might be time, so it was something, we're laughing about that, but I think, like that is something real to contend with because, obviously as through the aging, train ride of life, you're losing people along the way. But when you're, getting to, older and older, there's less and less. And it is people that you don't
There's
have.
less
that.
people on the train.
Yeah, it is. And it's a hard thing to, and I can imagine too, you don't have that person to talk to, but I think that's why it's, you've said that to me. I don't think I always stuck with, like, that's why it's important to, make a new friend and accept that it's not going to be the same, but it's a different,
It's
stage.
I know. I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah.
that's really
It's hard. Yeah.
because I spent
Of
almost over
course.
30 years
I
with
couldn't even imagine.
with a single person that
Yeah.
I could tell
Yep.
anything to, not
Yeah.
other than my wife,
Yeah.
obviously, who passed away 7
Yeah.
year years ago, and I've been kind of floating and
Yeah,
a little bit
I get
lost
it.
since.
Yeah.
I
Well,
haven't
like
been able to say the
Yeah.
things that I want to say. So somebody said, "Oh, find a therapist." That's not the same.
not the same.
I understand the
Yeah.
therapy, and I.
No, but it's a
think it's-
different world.
But
Yeah.
it's a human being
Yeah.
who knows me inside and out.
Yeah.
Who we've known
I
each
get
other
it.
for so many years, and that's the worst part. And I know at your age, no offense, Otto, you've seen a lot of that happen
I
in your
have
life.
I have such a long list. I was very lucky.
And I'm just starting to see that.
Yeah,
I'm starting
right,
to
'cause
see
you're
it.
right, it's a
such
difference.
long list of tight, close friends
Right.
that aren't here
That aren't
anymore.
here anymore.
All right. And you can't replace that.
Right.
And it's hard for people. Some people, I can handle that.
How did you accept it though? Like, like when this
How did
started
I
happening to
accept
you,
it?
I don't think you
Yeah.
ever do, but
like I'm
how do you,
like
how do you cope
cope,
with it?
right? Cope with it. Yeah.
I don't think there's any simple answer. There are many times I miss a lot of these people. Like you
Mhm.
remember the guy that was on the show who lost his legs, my friend
Dennis, yeah,
Collins,
yep.
all right?
One of
was
my
a
favorite
guy, he was a go-to guy
Yeah.
for me, all right? We could talk about anything,
Mm.
all right? Well, Dennis is not here anymore, all right? And his memory is never gone.
Mhm.
And it's not easy, and I'm not going to say it's easy,
Mhm.
but you have to, this train ride of life thing, this philosophy
Yeah.
of that has gotten me through a lot of these
Mhm.
things.
Right.
All right. You go on the train. Dennis got off the train. I can't put Dennis
can't
back
change
on the
that,
train.
yeah.
All right. And I go along, and no, there will never be people like my first wife. I was
Mhm.
married 17 years. All right.
Mhm.
We were young when we
Yeah.
met, and I can't. And Bunny and I, my wife now, I was 40 when we got married.
Mhm.
It's different
Yeah, it's like your
when-
second
when
chapter
you
of
get
life.
married
Yeah.
at 40 than when you get
Yeah.
married.
I have a question because I want to know I'm not nuts. I'm not crazy. I talk to my father all the time. My
Mhm.
father's been gone 10 years.
Yeah, that's all right.
And my best friend.
Mhm.
I talk to them all the time.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, I just want to know that
I
they never
know.
answer. Thank God.
No, I think that's
Well,
part of,
you've heard me say this before. If I could do anything, who could I have dinner with? It would be my father at
Mhm.
my age.
Right.
All right.
Right. That's
Would be a great
brilliant. That would be
conversation.
wonderful. Yeah.
All right. So I'm not going to stand here and say, "Oh, this is easy."
right,
you know,
right. Just right.
blow
To
it
get
off.
over it, right.
Right.
No, it's not
Yeah.
easy. All right. But you really have no choice but to go forward
Mhm.
and be thankful
Yeah.
that you had those memories.
See, but I think that you hit the nail on the head because,
Alright.
and that's a hard thing, right? It's the gratitude piece of it all.
You
You know,
have
and
to
that's
go
yeah, it's
forward.
right. It's
Yeah.
tough.
But I also
Yeah.
find, because I've seen this with
Mhm.
friends and relatives,
Mhm.
they don't take the time to try to create new connections because, and I think that's bad because I think even after my friend died, I have other friends,
Yeah.
and those relationships actually have gotten a little
Like a little
little
stronger.
stronger.
Yeah.
because of the fact that
Yeah.
I think you need those
Yeah.
connections.
Let's go back to sociology 101.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right. In the core of your social circle is your wife, your husband, if you're married,
Right.
your father, your mother, whatever,
Mhm.
and a few close friends.
Mhm.
Then you go outside the circle a little bit, and I have a golf circle. I have my golf friends. Then I go a little further, and I got the people I walk with at Jones Beach. I have Project Independence Circle. All right. You're in a
His
different
bowling
circle.
circle.
No, you're in a different circle. You're not
Yeah, of
in the
course.
center
Mhm.
circle, right?
Yeah.
That's a reality.
Right.
Mhm.
So you have to realize that your center circle may get shaky as you
Mhm.
get older,
Yeah.
all right? But you have to have a couple of other circles, whether they be go to Project
Yeah.
Independence meeting, uh, Blankets of Love.
Mhm.
You know,
Right.
is that ever going to replace the center social
Yeah.
circle? No,
No.
it
Mhm.
will not. It's impossible.
Mhm.
All right.
No, but I
It's
think
not
that's the key,
doable.
though, is what you're
Right.
saying.
Right.
Because I think like we all get so caught up in like the replacement aspect. Like I need to, but to the acceptance of saying, you know what, I'm never going to. And I think that's what you've really nailed in your life in general, Otto. And like something that I totally admire about you because I struggle with an acceptance piece a lot of times, but I think you really have nailed that because it's like, you say, okay, like, listen, I'm never going to replace these people, but I could still, socialize. And yes, it might not be the same direct bond, but you're still putting yourself out there. It's like what Dan was saying, like you're still trying to form relationships with other people. And I think this thing that is difficult in my household, particularly,
Well, one of the best-
everyone has different ways of coping with that, right? Like, so it's like, a lot of my family will, can be a little melancholy, with things. And,
well, looking back in my
tough.
life, one of the best classes
Mm.
I just talked about
Yeah.
right here, sociology.
Yes.
All right. The looking at the picture
Yeah, of
of
society,
what's
humans, yeah.
real in your life, that you got that small center circle, but there's all kinds of stuff on the outer part of that, and you can't put people into the center circle again
Mhm.
that you were. I still have two friends, unfortunately, shaky ground,
Mhm.
but they were like 13 years old when we
Mhm.
first hooked up.
Hmm.
All right. We played ball together. We did this, but they both have big problems. So, I can't, they're not in there anymore because they have a problem. One has mental health problems, but this is all part of the package.
Yeah.
And
But I think the bottom line is, and the message, right, and is to, just try. I'm giving everyone homework. Just try to put yourself out there a little bit. Come to a Project Independence group. You never know who you're gonna meet. I am such a believer in like you just never know, right? What goodness could come your way. But everyone, I'd like to thank everyone for listening to Project Independence and You, Talk of the Town. I'd like to thank Otto and of course Dan. We'll be back every Friday, just trying to make life a little easier and break the world down. One conversation at a time, really. Join us again next Friday at 10 a.m. on LIU Public Radio. Goodbye and have a great weekend.